Welcome to round 2 recap of the Polish Division 1 Chess League 2025 happening in Chotowa. Apologies if you saw the part 1 video, it stopped abruptly, so this is a continuation of that. So today's round 2 and it's actually in the midnight, so it's based technically day 3, but so I'm going to recap our round 2 games, and if you want to know all the context about what tournament we are in and what's the format, do check out the part 1 video. So but I'll just do a quick recap of our team, where I'm playing for UKS OPP Torun, which is not my name if anyone is confused. My spelling is TA and this is TO. So that's our team. And in round 2, we were playing against MKS M OS Wilziska. And all of those, the last name of each club are tied with a city. So it's a very, region-oriented club, and there's no random names as far as I saw from the whole tournament and names. So we were favorites. We were playing with the white pieces on the odd boards, so board 1, 3, and 5. So, and the team we were playing scored an upset in round 1. So definitely we were very cautious that, all right, these guys have scored an upset and they could do it again. So yeah, we with that in mindset. And now round 2 was at 2:30 p.m., which is the ordinary time, so everyone was relaxed, prepared well, and everything was set. So without any further ado, let's dive into the games. I'll show the highlights maybe, and now I think I can show all of the games, because what I initially thought in part 1 videos that I'll just show here and there, but let's kind of have a deep dive in it. Okay, so let's go. So starting with Jacob's game, and by the way, in episode 1 I forgot to hide the results, but now I did, so I hope it's more suspense now. Okay, we reached a very topical position nowadays. This a6 Queen's Gambit declined, and this is White's way of kind of avoiding the normal Carlsbad structures and getting this weird pawn situation. Here, Black... sorry, I cannot pronounce his name, but I'll say Mr. Golenia. And so actually there's 2 players with the same surname, basically, and they are brothers. I was playing with the other brother, who was, I think, 1 year elder. Anyway, so here Black has to play c takes d4, claiming more center control. And how I'm saying not only like center control, but more pawns on the center. Basically, White has just 1 central pawn and Black has 3. So this was really important. However, after c4, which is a major mistake, because now White's center is cemented and it's now going to be very easy to break the pawn chain. So what did Jacob do? He went bishop d2. It was important to cover this check, and his idea is now to play b3. So let's get the arrow. So b3 is White's idea. I'm taking this down. Okay, I'll remove the arrow. So after a5, b3, take. Now the pawn is isolated. Rook b1. Now White doesn't go for the pawns anymore. Even a5 is a weakness, but the king is a problem now. So bishop b4, queen a4 check. Yeah, it was definitely a huge opening disaster for Golenia. Here, a4 was a strong move, bishop takes, and these are the positions where it's almost hopeless. But some technique was still required, and Jacob played very smoothly here. Though for some second I thought it was going out of way, but he perfectly played the rook endgame. And when I was looking at the game, I was just sitting beside him, I was very unsure of this position, but it is completely winning, because usually 3 versus 2 should be manageable. But I think the major difference here is that the pawn on h4 is very much advanced. Without the pawn support Like even h5 would have been fine, but h4, h3, g3, and it's now just time. And it's kind of funny that at this moment I thought, hang on, is the rook forever, White's rook, Jacob's rook, forever getting trapped? But not really, because it looks funny, like, because if rook g5, if you kind of move your king, it's a check. But I mean, there are tons of ways, but just even king h3, protecting everything, rook g4, rook g5, and I think that's what happened. We'll see. Yeah, and exactly. And it was very important that here Jacob didn't play f5, rather he played h5, because the g and h pawns, well, there are chances to be a draw, but no, it's actually still winning nevertheless. But I think it's much easier to have f and g pawns rather than g and h pawns, but I think that both are completely winning. Anyways, and then soon Jacob won. Coming to my game, let me check if everything's fine. Yeah, coming to my game. So I was playing with another brother, Galenia Jan, I can pronounce his name. So we've reached this position, which is very typical and a very dryish Catalan position, closed Catalan or whatever you can say it. Here, I wanted to play c5, but I didn't like d5. So c5, d5 was my concern. So I wanted to play rook d8, but rook d8 would fall into knight b5 stuff, and I wasn't sure if I'll be able to recoup my pawn. But however, Indians are claiming I can, and I should have played rook d8. But also at another, yeah, I think this was more concerning to me, f5. Like, I knew that I don't need to play e takes f5. I can keep the e6 pawn isolated, so that I have much more control over the center, even though it's weak, but it gives me more control or grip on the center. And with my rook on f8, it at least looks over the f file, but with the rook on d8, I was not sure. And I think once you allow f takes e6, f takes e6, c5 ideas could feel a bit fragile. So I wasn't sure about that. So I thought maybe I'll play queen b8. I'll just take my time and then slowly play rook d8 and c5. But that was a huge mistake. So the drawback of queen b8 was knight d7. Knight d7 could be dangerous if my knight gets deflected. And what happened? My opponent played knight e4. And it wasn't a great feeling here, because now what's White doing? He's putting pressure on c6. He's going to take on f6 on the next move and play knight d7, and it's a fork. Sorry for the too many circles. So this is a disaster. Complete disaster. I was thinking of c5, knight takes, if anything like this was working, but I'll show you an interesting line here I was checking. So I was hoping that maybe this could be something, but well, engines are claiming that maybe I should stop the evaluation. Sorry. Let me check if, okay, the evaluation is hidden. Never mind. So I was worried that just a move like d5 could, throw spanner on my attack, maybe just queen f5, and this is gone. So this was very ambitious, but I found the best defensive move, rook c7, protecting d7 pawn. And here, he didn't take the pawn. Why? Because after queen e8, it looks like after I get rook c8, then it's done, because you can't really protect with the pawn. So let's say b4. I was thinking of b5, but apparently it's still the same move, which I won't reveal yet. But if he just plays a4, I will go a6. And the moment if he tries to play queen c5 or something like that, I think rook c8 was strong, but not really. Why not? Oh, rook a1. So yeah, there were chances for him to play this, but from his perspective, you can see that, does he really need to take a pawn for such complications? Maybe no. So that's why he played queen a4, but he simply missed knight d5, and what now? So the problem is that he cannot take here, because take. What I originally thought was b5, but that's maybe not good. But queen e8 is actually really strong. I missed this. But knight b4, and now the pin is a bit dodgy. Still, white has some compensation, but this is unnecessary. But so it was a nice trap I set, but I would have seen queen e8, but knight c3, rook fc8, and now I'm happy. Now everything is tucked in. We reached this position. Suddenly I opened my bishop, and I was so happy. I got my queen centralized, fixed the center, and we reached this position where we have queen, rook. Here I needed more, pieces in the attack, and I just have 2 pieces, but I have pawns, and I had to use my pawn. I had to play b4, though it's not the only chance I had, but it was the start of many misses. So with the pawn on b4, and if anyone has read Shangelin's book, Pawn Play, the part 2 series of his pawn play book for quality chess, he says that the pass pawn is just not for queening. It's also for it's also an attacker where it deflects or tries to remove attention. Tries to remove attention of the white's kings or the king's defenders. Basically, here, who's the king's defender? The queen and the rook. But if a pass pawn is there on the queen side, how would they manage to defend the king on the king side and stop this pawn? So I had to use this as an asset. But what I did was I was so tempted to play on the king side that I mobilized all my forces to the king side, and that really didn't give me much. And again, b4 had to be played. I went queen d8, and here there were some chances I missed here and there. Again, b4, like screaming. Even b4 here was quite good. Yeah, it was silly. Yeah. But now after g6, this was really bad. I can tell you why I played. I think b4 again was really good. So I was starting to get afraid that d5 could be dangerous, because d5, and if I take f5 is hanging, and the e pawn is suddenly very, very powerful. So I wanted to play, and we were almost reaching 40th move, and in the previous episode I didn't mention, but so this league has a second time control. So after 40th move, a player gets 30 minutes added on his clock. So I played g6 protecting f5 pawn, but that wasn't necessary. But I went g6, and now in Indian terms, my king is so exposed that once the position opens, I really don't have any scope for, running my king around or kind of keeping it safe. And from here, it was equal, and now my opponent was not under time pressure where he was just before reaching the time control. After a few moves here and there, we repeated, and it eventually we drew. So yeah, this was the last position. So a solid first 2 board results. So Jacob won, I drew. Damian also had a quick draw. I'll just show the final position. He was slightly I think it's a full-fledged game here, but it ended in a draw. But our bottom 3 boards didn't perform today. So we have Stanislav. He had a great position. So as you can see, this is from a Nimzo f3 opening, where Black has got everything he needs. He was able to kind of open the center, provoke g3, and now it was time to focus on some target. And here Stanislav went for the f file, and after f5, and then he played f4. Very enterprising, but what Indians or what others are saying here is, others, basically Indians, is to bring back this knight or kind of bring these pieces to standard squares. And f5, even though it looks good, it seems like it's also weakening Black's king, unfortunately. So I think knight b6, and so I'll show a couple of other moves. Here I was very skeptical of bishop takes c3. I saw this during the game. Wasn't sure if this was better. I was thinking of c4, but Stanislav, when I spoke to him, he was not sure after knight e4, and it makes sense. And this is a problem with when you're pushing the pawns. Sometimes you give up really important central squares. So, and then later, suddenly white was now attacking, and it wasn't a great position. Still, there were some chances here and there, but eventually I'll show the final position. Yeah, Stanislav King was a bit weak, and then he resigned. So that was our first loss. So at the moment, it was still equal. Jacob won and Stanislav lost, so it was still equal. But then we had Tigran with the white pieces, and this loss I think proved a bit costly. So Tigran had a very healthy position. It's an IQP, all good. The 3 pieces, minor pieces, and black is actually offering a trade, but here he had to just go rook ac1. But knight a4 was very tempting, but it was start of the downfall. And I'll kind of fast forward a few moves, and you'll notice that this poor knight stayed in the dim for quite some time. So this happened. Oops. Oh no, okay. I went too far. Sorry. So I'll just go back here. So just to illustrate how the knight on a4 really had a lot of issues. So yes. And here at this point, eventually played knight c3, and it was still equal though. It was still equal. And apologies, I'm not giving much analysis because I'm kind of recording 2 days recap in 1 day. So probably from tomorrow I'll kind of provide much more human analysis, because now I'm just kind of just doing engine analysis. So it was a tricky endgame, but it's hard to defend, and I really don't understand these endgames honestly. But f5 was, so how's white should play? So probably white should just keep the king on g4 and it's still equal. But after king e5, black won. So that meant we were on -1 now. And did I miss anyone's game? I don't remember. So it was Trisha's game now. And Trisha sadly lost. And it was a very exciting position here. Super complicated. You can see that Trisha has an exchange up, but white has tons of extra pawns. And here she had to play a5, but instead she played this move. So basically the idea of a5 is to ask white what you want to do. Do you want to take? Then you allow queen takes a3. If you push now, Trisha can play rook bc8. And the idea is that now you cannot really play bishop takes c8. So, and if you move your queen, the rook on c1 check might be dangerous. So the only option would be this, and it's similar to the game. You'll understand what I'm trying to say. But now Trisha wins this pawn, and this pawn is a game changer. Let's see the game here. So Trisha directly played rook dc8, and this was a mistake because now Trisha doesn't have that passed pawn which we have just seen a few seconds ago. And since and usually in these imbalances where you have a rook bishop versus queen or a rook knight versus queen, having a static position from the person who doesn't have a queen is the key. And this is exactly what's happening now. Black doesn't have any single break to kind of free up the position, have a lot of dynamic activities, but not at all. So her opponent played really well. She stabilized her position, pushed the pawn, and then Trisha resigned. So with that, what's the team result? Let's move back here again. I'll close this, and the result is, ta-da! It was a defeat, 2-4. Not a pleasant result. I think we could have had a close margin result at least. Probably, I should have pushed for a win. Tigran might have hold that endgame, but it's difficult for sure. So, and the team MOS is lower rated than us, lower seeded than us. So definitely an upsetting round. But well, it's just the start of the tournament. We have 7 more games left. And by the way, there are 2 halls, so our mission is to keep playing on the hall 1, which is I think the top 5 boards and the top 10 boards, I think, and then the second hall is the remaining boards. So we're still playing on hall 1, and we're playing. I'm not sure who we're playing now, but probably in tomorrow's recap we'll discuss more about that. But so for now, our it's been going okay. So 1 win from round 1, round 2 we lost. A lot of more exciting games, and it's a long tournament. So I hope you wish the best for us, and I'll keep doing a lot of recaps, daily recaps. So thanks guys for watching, and apologies if there's confusion of what is part 1, part 2, but I've separated them. So this is round 2, day 2 recap. Thanks for watching guys. See you tomorrow.